Hi class, welcome to week 1 of Story, Portraits, and Civic Action. Wow, what a crazy time we live in. And this will be a very interesting term. Like I say in my welcome note below, I'm actually kind of excited about it. I think there's a lot of really meaningful work that we can do from home. So I feel actually really good about the course materials that I just shifted around a little bit, rework things since you guys won't be able to go out into the communities to do your service work. But yeah, I don't know. I have a good feeling about this, about us. The last 2 weeks have been especially crazy in my life because my little girl, who's 6 years old, she came down with a really bad fever and a dry cough 13 days ago. And 4 days after that, my son and my husband got really sick. And so for the last almost 2 weeks now, I have been in very extreme caretaking mode. I'm incredibly happy to report that all 3 of them are, well, they're not better, actually. They're all recovering. So it's been a pretty nasty upper respiratory virus. And our doctor thinks it probably is COVID-19, but there have not been tests available, so we've just been home. Amazingly, I did not get it, whatever it is. So I'm grateful on that account, but I will say, caring for my people and then preparing for this class was a challenge. And it kind of gave me insight actually into the challenge that you will all be facing, which is working from home. I don't know who you live with, if you have small children or pets, or and even if you don't have a dependent, if you have roommates, to share a space and be quarantined together or sheltering in place, it requires something else to do our professional and our educational work in that same proximity of where we do everything else. It is challenging. So yes, so a few days ago, just as my family was recovering, I was like, okay, my spring term's going online tomorrow. I think it was either it was Saturday. So I had 2 days to kind of get this prepared for you. And I woke up early and I got on it and I worked for almost a half day. And I was working inside of D2L, recreating content inside one of the text editors. And lo and behold, I got a phone call that took me away from the computer. And you know how in D2L, every so often there'll be that pop-up window that says, you're going to be signed out if you don't, stay logged in. Well, I missed it. I was away from the computer when that popped up. And when I came back, I think because maybe it has to do with the new dual sign-in thing that they just started. Well, my software froze and I lost everything that I wrote. And it was like on top of 12 days of intense caretaking my family, and then to try and get this going for you guys, and then to lose it. I cried, actually. It was hard. But this is where I'm going with all of this. As I was crying, a memory came to me, and the memory is a story that I had heard on Moth Radio. I don't know if you guys know that podcast or that radio show. And this is very random. I can't explain why it popped into my mind, but I remember the story of this man, a doctor, who in his early years of working in public health, he was a student. In fact, I think he was an adolescent psychologist at that time. He just graduated, maybe with his bachelor's, just got a brand new job. He was really excited about his work. I think he got a new house and he got I think he was just married. It was like his life was just starting out and it was so promising. And there was something like some kind of economic crash, maybe. Whatever the case was, he lost everything. Well, he lost his job. And he found himself working at a state mental hospital. And his job put him in, I think it was like some ward down in the basement of this hospital. And he clocks in for his first shift and he's walking through this, the bowels of this place. And one of the very first people that he comes across is this old woman, and she's just, her eyes are clenched shut and her hands are clenched shut. And what I remember from this story, and I must have heard it at least 2 years ago, I remembered that her fingernails were growing into the palms of her hands and they were just infected. She was just in this kind of clenched, position. And so here he is. He lost all that he intended for himself, and his great goals of how he was going to serve the world were dashed away. He loses it all, and he finds himself in this dark place, encountering this human in a very difficult situation. And I'll stop the story there because guess what? I found it for you, and I want you to listen to it. I feel like how the story unfolds from there is, well, it was a touchstone for me in my own moment, how to deal with loss and how to deal with when your life takes a different trajectory. But I also feel like it is so pertinent to us in this moment, all the plans that we lost for our spring term, and also gives a really good perspective of what it means to show up in the context, in the place, in the time that you are, and to be able to see those around you and be able to care for them in a meaningful way. And it also really beautifully illustrates the potential for transformation for both the caretaker, the caregiver, but also the person receiving the care. So both parties can be transformed in pretty amazing ways. So give that a listen. That's actually assigned for week 1. It's just a 12-minute story, but I'm going to sign off with that. But I will say one other thing. Isn't it interesting the ways that stories reside inside of us and kind of show up when we need them? So we will also continue a discussion about story and the role that it plays in our lives and the role that it plays in affecting change. So lots of good stuff this term. I'm happy to have you all here. And best of luck to all of us as we move forward. All the grace for us as we figure this out.